Good afternoon. First of all, let me thank you for being patient as to our response to the controller's report. We got that information the same time you got that information. And we don't do knee-jerk responses, so we delayed our response till today. And since we delayed it, we thought that we'd give it to you in person. In response to the recent press release from Philadelphia City Controller, my administration found it necessary to clarify some of the misleading statements made about our office and expound on information that was vaguely provided. On June the 8th, 2023, the Philadelphia Sheriff's Office submitted a 159-page response which included details, descriptions, diagrams of our investigation to the Controller's Office. This is the book we gave to the Controller's Office. Information, diagrams, investigation. This is going to be uploaded to our webpage, so you can basically pull it up yourself and look at everything we did. As previously stated, my administration was charged with the responsibility of piecing together incomplete property receipts, faded and incomplete ledgers, and other improperly kept records to locate firearms that were unaccounted for, dating back decades to the Williams administration, Dealey administration, and the Green administration. Those are the books. Those are the same books, same information that the controller had to do their audit in, and that we went back and did a more in-depth audit from those books that was left here in this office when I took office. To be clear, there is no definitive, and I repeat that there is no definitive way to say that firearms are missing due to the bad record keeping. Having been contacted by the Controller's Office regarding missing firearms, our office began an investigation prior to the fiscal budget 2024 hearings, which took place during our ongoing investigations. At that time, our deputies were able to locate paperwork for 80 guns, 57 service weapons, and 23 firearms that were still registered to retirees. This allowed us to make reasonable inferences of the firearms' actually whereabouts, and at that time, we concluded that 57 guns were found. When the investigation was complete, we concluded that 58 firearms was found, 20 are still considered missing. We presume 18 have been traded or burned. 3 firearms were duplicates of the city's controller list, the same audit that they did in our office, that was a duplicate on their list, and were never located in the Philadelphia Sheriff's Office. Our administration can account for every firearm weapon received by the Philadelphia Sheriff's Office as of January the 7th, 2020, until now. As stated in our June 8th, 2023 response, that's this booklet here that we gave to the Controller's Office, and y'all can just upload it, it's going to be uploaded on our website. Our office properly labeled and tagged all firearms that are stored in the Armory and will continue to accurately update records accordingly. Since the inception of this administration, June the 6th, 2020, we have worked diligently revamping the safekeeping of firearms and the accuracy of their records. Simply put, we cannot answer inconsistencies that derived as a result of bad record keeping in the past. For the Controller's Office to recommend that we make a definitive determination about missing firearms, by the way of using bad records and misinformation is unsatisfactory. Eric, what I want to show you is what we came into this office, what the armory looked like. That's what the armory looked like when we came into office. That's where past administrations kept records and firearms on the floor, in the corner.
If you notice, January 7th, 2020, I want you to take note of that date. Those are the dates of that picture. Please take note of that date.
The controller did her first audit and gave some recommendations for the armory. We did all of that. Let me show you what the armory looks like today. Secure alarm system, cameras, and alerts. Nobody can go in there without we knowing that they came in and left.
Take note of the camera, one. Camera 2 with a motion detector. Camera 3.
Every firearm under this administration is tagged, uploaded into the BEAST system. We know when they come in, we know when they leave, we know who it goes to, we know those that are set aside to be burnt, we know those who get them back. Everything. Let me say this. They constantly keep trying to put it on this administration as to what they claim as missing firearms. Neither the controller's office on the audit of that and that, the way that office look, can definitively say stuff is missing. They can assume, and we can presume because of the paperwork, which is the same paperwork that they did an audit on, that firearms that was in that office either were burnt or traded, just because of the pieces of paper that we put together to determine what was what. If the controller would have done their job 10 years ago and audited that office, maybe it wouldn't have been in that condition when I took office. Maybe if they'd have audited it 5 years ago, maybe it wouldn't have been in that condition and there would be no presumption of missing guns. They keep putting it on this administration. How about their responsibility that they claim that they're supposed to be the auditors of this city, organizations, and different departments, but yet they failed in their responsibility to audit that, because that's what I came into in 2026. I mean, I'm getting it. June of, I'm getting fired up. January the 6th of 2020 is when I came in office. And that's what I came in office to.
All right, don't get fired up.
You get the timeline?
Yeah.
I'll turn it over to my undersheriff in reference to the timeline of these things, so you can get a better picture.
It's important to note that the audit began prior to the sheriff entering this office. In November of 2019, the auditor contacted the then administration, letting them know that they wanted to audit it. January 6, 2020, not 26, 2020, the sheriff was sworn in her first this term. January 7th, 2020, city controller and her agents or employees were over here to begin conducting the audit of the room that you saw. November 17th, 2021, and it's important to know between January 2020 to November 17th, 2021, we were hitting the extent of COVID. So the things were shut down, so the audit took a little longer. But on November 17th of 2021, the controller, Rebecca Reinhardt, outlined her recommendations. Her recommendations was to process for access or assess tagging, firearms, and other weapons. To proceed for maintenance or process for maintenance that would detail the inventory. Accountability in tracking PFA weapons. Continue to track PFA weapons, and a memorandum of understanding between the Philadelphia Sheriff's Office, the Philadelphia Police Department, and in fact, the members of the city of Philadelphia. All of those processes that I just indicated were in fact accomplished. On January 22nd, 2022, we replied to a memo or sent a memo to then Controller Rebecca Reinhardt, outlining everything that we've done, from the Beast, from the armory that you were able to see, from tagging each and every weapon that were brought in and those weapons that were presently there. All of that you were able to see. On May 23rd, 2023, the acting city controller requested additional information. On June 8th, 2023, we gave him what the sheriff showed you, this 159-page response. In the response, every particular missing or alleged missing weapon, there was an explanation as to what we did to investigate it and what we presumptively found. And then, of course, September 20th, yesterday, at about 12:10 p.m., when you received their press release, we received their information. It's interesting that they sent us a request on May. We sent them a response in June, but it took September 20th, 2023 for them to release a report. I just think it begs the question.
What question does it beg?
Ha!
What's the question?
Well, you want me to answer that?
You can answer.
It begs the question that instead of having a correspondence, if in fact there was something that they didn't understand, this, I guess the 20th is approximately maybe 6 weeks or so prior to November. And as you can see, some news outlets have already tried to tie other alleged allegations. In fact, they talked about things that we're not here to talk about that didn't exist, to this so-called incident that occurred between the 70s and 2014. That's when these weapons that we are talking about were allegedly in the sheriff's office. The 70s to 2014, to the sheriff and her administration here.
So 6 weeks prior to the election, it's a political hit, Joe?
Well,
The acting controller's trying to knock out the sheriff?
I don't know if, I'm sorry, let me let the sheriff answer that question.
First of all,
because I'm getting hyped.
I can't definitively say if that is, but you draw your own inferences. This is September. The election is in November. What I can see in the past, of controllers, uh, basically running off the backs of departments and offices in this city to be somewhat a political move for them. You tell me how it worked out for them.
Are you
Then-
saying you didn't hear from them since June?
That's correct.
There was no correspondence between the controller's office and the sheriff's office from June until now?
Absolutely.
They never asked for clarification, they never asked for more
Never
documents?
asked me or the assistant undersheriffs that are behind you for any clarification, and if they were misunderstood something, we could have clarified it for them, or in fact anything. We were waiting, to be honest with you, early on, for a response.
They sent some questions. We did an in-depth investigation with everything we had, which is the same information they had when they did their audit. And we sent them this 159-page book of everything we did. We don't have nothing to hide here.
And so that
Nothing.
And so that we're clear, this is half filled out information. There are names, there are some serial numbers, some missed serial numbers, that missing numbers. There are dates when it indicated that sometimes things were closed and we don't know how they were closed. There's an indication that indicates that there is a property receipt. So we'll go to these things, which is a book of property receipts from 2015 and older. And when we look on a property receipt, the property receipts have 6 weapons. Only one weapon on that property receipt I'll just pick the random one. 28, I'm sorry, it's taking me a little time. In
Because you can't read it.
2019, that's not even 2019, I apologize. In 98,
1998.
1998, there's one weapon that was indicated returned, and there were 4 other or 5 other weapons on there. The controller took that to indicate that those other 5 weapons were here. We took it to indicate that this is shabby bookkeeping. We can't verify what came in this office in 1998. We can't verify what came in this office in 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019. But we can damn sure verify by everything what came in this office in 2020 to this date. And those weapons or bullets or whatever we have that was in the office at the time we did the renovations and the audit.
Let me say this. The controller has not been back here. That first audit recommendation, we've done all of that. Put up the screen again. From what was before to what is today. Yet they have not been back here to audit what we've done with that armory. Now you tell me, is it a political move? Because if you want to do some recommendation, you would think you would come back and look at what recommendations were done. I kind of think my mom would say that would be common sense. If I tell you to do something, I'm going to go check and see if you did it.
We threw out the term BEAST, which is a computer program. That computer program tracks everything that we bring in. Who receives that information? What is the serial number of that weapon? Is that weapon transferred back to the person after a PFA, for example, is settled? Is that weapon collected and then subsequently aligned with being burnt? Is that weapon here, what bin is in, because we tag them? We can go right to it based upon that BEAST system, pull that tray out, and get that weapon, identifying that that's the weapon. And the most important thing, who entered the information into the BEAST? Who touched the gun? Something called chain of custody, folks. I think I know a little bit about that. And in chain of custody, you have to identify that you received or viewed the instrument, whether it's a gun, a knife, or whatever it is. That's so someone can ensure that you received it and you can give it back. The controller is asking the sheriff, this administration, to actually distinguish and discuss the work of other individuals. 3 administrations We have to go into these books and try to explain what 3 administrations did.
The guns that you can't account for, or that you have, or even if you have to make certain inferences or presumptions about where they are based on these serial numbers, if you can't definitively say where they are, why not just report them to the PPD as missing?
Great question, and I'll tell you why. We don't report it to the PPD for these particular reasons. There are opportunities for a retiree from the sheriff's office, who in fact had his weapon, service weapon, taken with him. He can gift that weapon to his son. If he gifts his weapon to his son, there's no serial number that has to transfer through NCIC or anything else. He gave it to his son. If in fact he dies, we look at this ledger. The ledger indicates that he's the one that had it. We go to his house, we don't find him. We don't find him. Doesn't mean the gun is missing. It means that we can't find him. His son then, let me fill the analogy. His son then has a right to carry a gun, carries that gun, drives in the street, gets into some type of altercation where he confronts police or is confronted by police. Got into a car accident and him and the guy were arguing. The cops then see that he has a weapon. He shows them a license to carry. They take the weapon, they go back to their car, if it wasn't NCIC, and they run the serial number and it would come up missing. It would come up as if it was stolen. So now this individual who rightfully had that weapon, it wasn't missing, is now charged, has to hire somebody to try to clarify that. They're asking us to make an assumption. This is law enforcement, folks. We don't make assumptions. We deal with what the facts are, and we try to dissect what those facts are. So when we see that there were 10 guns, all from 1985, that were burned, of the same type of model, but this other 3 guns from 1985 is not mentioned, you can presume, not assume, that maybe those 3 guns was with that burning, which is why we don't have any further information. But we can't assume that it was taken out of here. We can't even assume, folks, honestly, that we ever received it. We weren't here.
Okay.
And the records don't even indicate who took the gun in, how long it's been here. They're asking the sheriff to be derelict in her responsibility. They're asking her to accuse people of taking things that we're not sure was ever taken. They're asking her to indicate that something was stolen that we don't know for a fact was ever stolen. It could have been gifted.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm getting
Next question.
excited. I apologize.
Any more questions?
Yes. Are you concerned that the guns that you can't account for are flowing in the underground flow of guns in this city that are used and possibly used in crime?
First of all, anything that we have listed, nobody can come say to us that any of those guns that is allegedly missing has been used in anything. We are so concerned that when the controller did their audit, we went back in and went through every line item and came up with this 159-page forensic audit that we did internally. We are Philadelphians. We're concerned about guns being anywhere in this city. So conclude that we don't care is an understatement. And it's unfortunate that people will even believe that.
The majority of the weapons that people are talking about are revolvers. The majority of what's happening in the street with 50 and 60 and 75 cartridge casings are automatics. When you talk about PFAs, even back then, especially back then, and weapons, that doesn't necessarily mean it was a gun. A weapon is a knife. If it's used in a PFA, we take it. A bat, if it's used during the course of someone seeking a PFA, we take it. We had tasers that we took. So don't assume, as they did, that everything was a firearm, one. And secondly, a lot of these that we're talking about in terms of PFAs go from, and the undersheriffs keep telling me to make sure I say the 70s because I try to get the exact date and I think it was 79. Between 79 and 2014. 79 and 2014.
Can we wrap it up?
So are there not records of how many of those PFA weapons were actually firearms? It doesn't say if they were firearms versus knives.
And unfortunately, they didn't have to fill that out when they filled it out. Now we require that based upon the auditor's report in our MOU with the police department. We require you to say, if you say a weapon, describe what the weapon is.
You think former Sheriff Green has his gun?
I don't know what former Sheriff Green has.
You asking us to read minds and consider stuff that we don't know. We're not here to say of stuff about some things, whether they do or don't. We don't know. Wasn't none of those guns that we came into is registered to him.
Have you tried to track down these retired deputies?
Yes.
All of them?
In our report, in that 159, we went through, we have an internal affairs. They did an investigation on retired officers. Some of them have passed, and the family don't know where that gun is, and those guns are registered in their names. So we can't take the guns registered in their names and put it into a system. They're not in our name.
And some of them have moved, and so therefore we were unable to kind of locate those individuals, so we can't indicate whether or not they have that weapon anymore, they gifted that weapon, or anything else. So to put their name in a system, in an NCIC, as if that gun was somehow stolen from somewhere, we believe is against what our responsibilities are.
Tariki, these sheriffs are all on pension. Can't you track them down through their pension checks?
You know, we didn't try to track them down through pension. We used other methods that we have as a result of law enforcement. Even those that are from pension, they could have their pension going to a particular bank account but live in Florida. We can try to the best of our ability to track those individuals down, but the short answer to your question, although I gave you a long answer already, is that we attempted to use the investigative skills and all of the things at our disposal to locate individuals, and we indicated the people we couldn't, that was deceased, not deceased, that's moved.
We are moving forward. That's why you see the state of the art in reference to the armory. We took what the controller initial report was and did everything in there. And that's why you see the state of the art armory. We're moving forward. For some reason, some media people wants to keep pounding on what happened in 79, 80, 90, and affiliate it to this administration. I came in here to fix things. I didn't come in here to constantly keep going back about other administrations and what they did or didn't do. All I can do is account for what we're doing today.
The comptroller says that there's 185 weapons that are missing. How many do you say that are missing?
Did you just come in? Because we gave that information.
I'm here.
Okay, I'll do it again.
I'm listening.
All right. At the time, our deputies were able to locate paperwork for 80 guns, 57 service weapons, and 23 firearms that were still registered to retirees. This allowed us to make reasonable inferences of the firearms' actually whereabouts, and at the time, we concluded that 57 guns were found. When the investigation was complete, we concluded that 58 firearms was found, 20 are still considered missing. That means we have no records of it, even being in the sheriff's office. And if it's half of a serial number or half of a property receipt or a piece of a property receipt or handwriting you can't even read, I don't know what it is that you want us to do here. But we will continue to look for things and try to go back and go over. We have not concluded that we have stopped looking for. Whatever information we get or we can find, my internal affairs has not stopped investigating it. We can just do what we do here. I suggest you call the controller's office and ask them why they didn't do an audit 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago. And as to why that armory looked like that when I walked into the door. And these are the paperworks that we had to actually look at in order to do an audit. Ask them. Aren't they the ones that look at the books of all the departments and organizations in the city? They're derelict in their duties. Because if they'd have did it, we wouldn't be here today. Thank you.